Hive just released their Q2 revenue report. And as you know, unique to them, they also do an audio report to their stakeholders. And they just released that publicly. And so they're able to describe or talk about highlights of the previous quarter and some of the plans that they have in the succeeding quarters. So that's a good thing because we get to have an idea on what's happening, where the money is really coming from. So we're going to go through the highlights of that call and of their report. Now, if you're a member of my Patreon community, I uploaded the audio recording in Patreon, the English only parts. Now, if you want to hear the Korean as well, then you can just go to the website of Hybe because it's already there. I just downloaded it from there, which you can do. It's legal. And then I just took out the Korean ones to make it easier for you guys to listen to it. Okay, so let's go through the highlights. Everything went up across the board. So here is the earnings report, the summary, the executive summary of their earnings report. And this is again available in their website. So as you can see, their revenue, gross revenue, and their operating profit went up year on year. So for revenue, the gross revenue, it went up 10.2%, and then the operating profit went up 29.4% year on year. I've explained to you guys before that it is better for you to compare year on year if you want to see the health of your finances instead of from the previous months or the previous quarter, because consumption is actually seasonal. So, just to give you a better idea to explain this thing better, if you're a toy company, for example, and if you want to see how well you're doing in January, you should not compare your performance to December because that's when people shop. That's when people give gifts. And, by January, they're done with their money. They don't have any more. So it would be unfair for you to compare your January to your December. You should compare it to the January of last year. So in the case of Hybe, you should be comparing their Q2 performance of 2025 to the Q2 of 2024. All right. So, as you know, there are major divisions or components in their revenue. Artist direct involvement is one, and then artist indirect involvement is another. Usually, those two things are the biggest contributors of their to their revenue. Okay. So, for artist direct involvement, and that includes recorded music, so albums and streaming, and then concerts, self explanatory, and then ads and appearances. So if they get brand deals or if they get paid appearing in something, that goes into that. All right. So for their recorded music, that actually went down. So from 249, this is in million Korean won, it went down to 228 for recorded music. For concerts, it went up 143 to 188. Also, their ads and appearances went from 30,341 to 30,606. So their recorded music albums and streaming actually went down. Okay, now for indirect involvement, that includes merchandising, content, and fan club. So the membership on Weverse, that goes under artist indirect involvement. So for merchandising and licensing, they describe this to be mostly for the Q2 light sticks and other merch that are connected to their concerts. So from 109, it went up 152, which is kind of consistent with the increase in their revenue for their concerts, because as I've said, most of their merch are actually connected to their concerts. Now content, that would be digital content, movies and stuff like that, that went down from 83,000 to 70,000. Well, there wasn't a lot of documentaries that are being released. And then for fan club, it actually went up from 23,000 to 34,632. So their operating profit went up 589,000 to 639. Okay, sorry, per operating expenses, and their operating profit actually went up 50,905 to 65,896 year on year. Okay, and then for their net profit, it went up from 10,000 to 15,465. So definitely a good sign. All right, so that is the executive summary. Let's go to some of the important details that they actually mentioned. Number one would be, for the first time, they actually volunteered mentioning BTS, because in the last 2 years that they've been doing this, they have been avoiding mentioning the name of BTS, and that is for understandable reasons. But this time, they actually mentioned several times that BTS is actually going to soon come back with an album and with a tour. They also mentioned the members' solo activities. And that is a huge thing, because it seems to be that they really are establishing just how powerful every member of BTS is. They mentioned, of course, J Hope, who in his last tour actually sold about 500, or they said approximately 500,000 tickets in 34 cities. And so that's a good sign. They also mentioned Jin, whose last album actually landed him on the number three position of Billboard 200. And they said that proves his bankability as a solo star. The same thing is true with J Hope. So it's good that they're mentioning it, and they mentioned that several times as well. I think, especially for J Hope, they mentioned it 3 times. Okay, so that's one of the major things that they mentioned. Next is that they actually discussed Hive America refocusing from two label model from artist centered agency. And that actually will give us an explanation why they decided not to renew the contract of Scooter Braun. I've discussed before that if you go through the history of CEOs of Hive, even Hype Korea, usually they would give the CEO a 5-year contract. But on the fourth year, the CEO usually steps down, he gets moved around. So when Scooter Braun actually stepped down as a CEO, it wasn't really surprising. Although he did mention before that they were talking about probably extending, but I think because Hybe America decided they were going to refocus from artist centered, which is the specialty of Scooter Braun, to label model, because that is they feel that that's more stable. I think that's why they decided, okay, we're just gonna go with somebody else because this is not your specialty anymore. Okay, so not a whole lot of drama in there. He stepped down, he got replaced. That is normal for Hype. And it was right on the money on the fourth year. Now, one thing that is really surprising here, or impressive, not really surprising, but impressive, is that concert tours actually went up 130%. They did a lot of touring. And then, actually, this part highlights a really interesting Hive strategy, which I will be discussing in a bit. But before that, this is how the concert revenue is going so far. So 2024, in 2024, that is, they've had 451 concerts and fan meetings. But 2025, we were only halfway through, and they already have 344 concerts and fan meetings. That only gives you an idea on how active the talents are, the idols are in their different activities. So Le Seraphim will be going on tour, 17 will be going on tour, and Hypen will be going on tour, TXT will be going on tour. So for sure, the number is going to go up further. They will most likely, for sure, they're going to hit 500. So they are going to surpass the performance for 2024 in terms of concerts and fan meetings. They also said that this actually proves that because of Cat's Eye. They mentioned Cat's Eye several times actually during the call, and they said that Cat's Eye is actually proving that the K-pop model can also work in North America because of the kind of success that they are experiencing. And it seems that even they feel surprised that Cat's Eye is actually really becoming big. And as proof, they've sold out their concerts, their tour, and that they've had to add an additional 3 shows just to because there was so much demand, and that got sold out as well. I'm sure that by now they're sort of hoping that they went for a bigger venue. Okay, now, the subunit. So Woozi and Hoshi of 17 went on a tour in Japan. and that became very successful. So Hybe actually said that this is going to inspire them to sort of look at other units, because now they sort of have a case study that proves that it can work even if it is not the entire team. Now, this is going to be very important for 17 because the members are slowly enlisting one by one. So, some of the members, it seems that the strategy is that they are going to enlist in batches. So, there's like two or three that will enlist, and then the rest will be outside doing concerts, releasing music. And then by the time the other two are almost done, then the next one is going to go and enlist. So, if because they know now that the subunit tour will still work, even if it's not the entire group, it's going to give them a better opportunity, because then the members that are left behind can also go on tour. And also, this is going to give us hope for other members or other groups in High, because that means they are now open to actually doing unit tours. One of the things that I had in my mind was actually the rap line, but BTS may be too big for that, or maybe not. We don't know. But also another one would be Yoonjin and Kasuha. I think that duo, if they actually go on tour, is just going to be perfect. But I don't think they're gonna do that anytime soon. I think they're going to wait and do one more tour outside of the one that they're having right now before they even contemplate on doing anything together. So, this is the subunit. They succeeded. They actually sold out their tour, I think, in Japan and some parts of Asia as well. Now, they did say that they are expecting some losses because they are expanding. So, they are continuing their purchases of new companies. So, and this is normal for any company. I think one of the major lessons that I learned in the previous job that I have, which is actually in the finance industry, finance and investment industry, is that it's a long-term thing. If you really want to succeed and see your company grow, you're going to have to stay in your company for 20 years, because success, like really the huge amount of success, is going to come about maybe 15 years. And then your 15th to 20 years, if you surpass everything in the first 15 years, your 15th year to your 20th year, that's when you will really experience that growth and feel the kind of growth and success that you're going to have. And so they're doing that exactly. They're in their first 4 years, first 5 years, and they're just expanding. They're purchasing companies. Now, another lesson that I learned is that if you buy an established company, then you have to expect that in the first 3 years, that's a loss, automatic loss, because you're trying to recuperate whatever it is that you spent buying that company. So, as a CEO, for example, the way for you to earn would be two ways, right? One is the dividend, and then the other one is your regular salary. Now, the dividend doesn't come, it usually comes at the end of your fiscal year or at the end of the year, if your fiscal year and the calendar year is the same. So, what happens is that at the end of the year, your money gets consolidated, you pay your bills, make sure that everything is paid off, and whatever is left, that is your pure revenue, and that is what gets distributed among all investors, including you, the CEO, if you are also a founder or an investor. Now, if there are companies that would actually do it quarterly, but that's very, very rare. And it's even rarer for companies to do it monthly. Usually, the CEO, if a founder is also the CEO, they will just take a salary. So that's actually how they earn on a monthly basis. But the big money would usually come at the end of the year. So, going back to Hype, that is actually what they are doing. They're just expanding. And so the official, the CEOs and the founders of the companies that they are purchasing, they earn through their monthly salary. But they're if they are still a part owner of the company, then their dividend will come at the end of the year. So I think in the first 3 years, we do need to expect that it's just going to be a lot of losses because they are expanding. They're buying companies, establishing new offices in different countries. That is normal. They are looking at things way in advance, and that's how it is supposed to be if you really want to grow your company. Another surprising thing that they shared is that streaming is actually accounting for 32% of their revenue. It was really surprising because what does anybody earn from streaming? You barely earn anything. But do remember, this is gross, right? That just because they, for example, if they earn 345 million from streaming, doesn't mean that 345 million will go to an artist. Of course, you have to pay the distributor, Hype gets paid, the label gets paid, producers, composers, the artists, everyone that are everyone that is involved in the production of that album will also get their own royalties. So even if it's bringing in a lot of money, it doesn't mean that it's going to bring in a lot of money to the artist. But at least we have hope, because I have always said that at some point in the future, people are just going to stop buying album because of technology and because it's just going to be really, really expensive. So the mere fact that the listeners of Hybe idols or Hybe talents, they are starting to actually listen more through streaming, that is good, because that's really where things are headed. I think people that will be buying albums, they're just going to buy that just because they want to support the artist. So this is the contributor um for the streaming. Okay, so the blue green one is US labels. So this is the streaming that's coming from artists that are in the US. And purple one are art that's for artists that are Koreans, but this is their revenue coming from other parts of the world outside of Korea. Dark blue, that's Korean artists and their revenue coming from Korea itself. Okay, so one thing that we do need to notice is that obviously US labels, they're raking it in because that's six they're bringing in the biggest share, right? 63. And then second to that, I was actually this is actually very interesting for me, is Korean artists and their music or their streams coming from other parts of the world outside of Korea. That's big. They have already dwarfed South Korea. That is, if you look at it in one go, like, oh, okay, you know. But then you also have to dig deeper because Korean artists' international revenue, that is divided across North America, Europe, other parts of Asia, Australia. So it looks like it's really big, but if you really think about it, because it's distributed across among different regions or countries, it it still proves that South Korea is still a very, very strong market when it comes to streaming. I hope I'm explaining it well. Okay. And then Big Machine is actually bringing in a lot of the streaming. So this came from their report as well. There are three highlights. So let's start with Big Machine. So Riley Green, it landed in Hot 100 number, sorry, Billboard Hot 100. And then there's Thomas Rhett. And then QC Quality Control, which is the hip hop label. They had Little Baby, they have Big X the Plug. Okay, so both artists actually came with so for Big X the Plug, he actually ended up in Billboard Hot 100, and Lil Baby had 13 tracks that charted on the first half of the year, including in Billboard Hot 100, including 12 from his fourth studio album. And then there's Jimin, J Hope, and Jin. They are the ones that raked in or bring in the most amount of money when it comes to streaming. So for Jimin, who, as we know, um, who actually is the longest charting solo song by an Asian native soloist, by an Asian native artist in Billboard Hot 100, 33 weeks without any collaborators. So that is a huge thing, and it charted for more than half a year. And then J Hope, all three English songs that he released before his tour, or sorry, some would be two songs he released during his tour, LV Bag, Sweet Dreams, and Mona Lisa. And they all entered Billboard Hot 100. And then Jin, for Don't Say You Love Me, charted number 3. in Billboard 200 for his album Echo, and then Billboard Hot 100 also. He Don't Say You Love Me actually landed inside Billboard Hot 100 as well. So these are the biggest contributors for their streaming. Okay, now there was someone in the audience, meaning one of their shareholders, who actually asked a question asking for the differences between the contracts in South Korea and the US. His concern is that, okay, unlike South Korea, the contracts are longer. He's saying that the contracts in South Korea are longer, usually 7 years. So that allows the company to recuperate whatever investment that they made. So he's asking, because the US is different, the structures are different, then how can we be sure that you will be able to actually recover your money? And the CEO answered it in the most PR kind of way by not answering the question. He answered by not answering the question. So I'll just explain it a little bit. Basically, what he said, what the CEO said is that, oh, it's actually not true. The 360 kind of deal in the US is pretty common. They did it with Backstreet Boys, with NSYNC. It's just that because many artists didn't want that kind of a deal, the structure is different. But his point is that it is possible for them to implement that kind of contract that they are implementing here. Now, just want to add also that it is actually not true that the contracts in the US are more lenient. It is not. If you would remember TLC when they won the Grammys, in that same night, they actually started talking about how unfair the contracts are. I'm not saying that HYBE will be using an unfair contract, but they were selling, like, I don't know, 35 million or whatever. They were very, very successful. I'm talking about TLC. But then they were still deep in debt because in the US, your contracts expiration is based on the number of zeros that's on your contract, and it's not a set date. In South Korea, you sign a contract after 7 years, it expires, you can extend whatever. But in the US, they will compute how much money they're spending on you, and you're going to have to recover that. Unless they recover, you will forever be in under contract with them. That's how TLC actually ended up bankrupt, because no matter how much money they were earning, because the company is still spending on them. But of course, the contract was just really BS. But the explanation of the label is that, yeah, you're earning money, but we're also spending money on you. So we need to recuperate whatever it is that we are spending on you. That is their explanation. So it's actually not better. Now, things have been better. I think back in 2021, Sony Music actually announced that they were going to forgive the debts of their artists. So here is the article on that one. Okay. So yeah, so they said that, oh, we're going to start forgiving the debts of our artists. And they were very, very clear though that they are not replacing the structure of their contracts, or they're not replacing their contracts at all, meaning the artists that they will be signing, they will still have debts. It's just that for this batch, he decided to actually forgive that. So, but again, doesn't mean that new artists won't have debts. That's not the case. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation of. Okay, now they also mentioned Weverse partnership with new artists. So, oh, sorry, before I jump. Um, so I did mention that the biggest contributor for Hive streaming would be BTS members Jin, J-Hope, and Jimin. Jimin is actually doing really well in the US. He already tied BTS for the in terms of streaming, number of streams. So they both have for 545 million. So I wasn't really surprised when they mentioned that he is one of the contributors. And then you also have J Hope and Jin. Jin, however, is for Billboard 200. So that's for it is for direct artist direct involvement, but not necessarily for streaming. Okay. All right, let's go. Weverse partnership with new artists. They mentioned that they are actually starting to get more applications from different artists wanting to become a part of Weverse. But one of their greatest win is one artist from Japan, I think, signed with them because he wanted the ticketing to go through Weverse for his fans. So that's a big win. If they're able to do this successfully, then this is going to be a case study. They can actually go to different artists and say, okay, if you want your real fans to be the ones that will be buying your concert tickets, then you can use our system. And then the other thing is that eventually, they can improve the system and then do ticketings for all of their artists through Weverse instead of going through something like Ticketmaster, which just sucks big time. Another news is that the new boy band of Big Hit will be debuting on the 18th. The name of the boy band is Cortez, and I think it the meaning is color outside the lines or something like that. And they also said that there is a 24 hours YouTube premiere. I'm not sure if there is like something special that's going to happen. There was someone who actually said to me that they are probably going to do a 24-hour stream leading up to their debut, but that's unconfirmed. When I saw this, my interpretation is that they are going to turn on the premiere link 24 hours before the actual debut. And then there are tours that are happening. There is Le Seraphim and Hypen and 17. And then, of course, there's also TXT. So that's a lot of money that's going to come in because, as you know, money, concert is where the money is. Okay. So that's for tours. The other thing that I said I was going to mention was the Hive strategy. So it seems that one of the things that they are actually doing is not rush their artists into a tour. If you observe other groups from other companies, usually they send their artist or the group into a world tour as soon as possible. One example is Baby Monster, and they are actually very, very successful in their tour. But also, one danger is that they actually will not be prepared for a tour. When you go to the US, critics are different. They really are going to look at the merit of your performance, and that can make or break you. So I think one of the practices of Big Hit is to make sure that before we send you off to a North American tour, you're going to hone your skills. One example is actually Les Seraphim. In their first 18 months, they were in every university show. They were doing live performance here, live performance there, private performances. They would do guestings on different TV shows. And then, of course, they had that baptism of fire when the whole world was turning against them just because of a made up rumor. So now that they are honed and that they have found themselves, their identity on stage, that's when they get sent to a world tour. That seems to be the pattern. And I think that's also what they are doing with Isle It. Isle It is in almost every university festival. They guest here, they appear there. So I think in about 18 months, when they feel that, okay, you have enough songs, you also have enough experience, you kind of know yourself when you're performing on stage, I think that's when they will be sending the girls off to a tour. And I think that's a healthier example because just looking at other girl groups, like for example, Espa, as you know, I'm a huge fan of Espa, and I really think they're one of the most talented a group out there. I feel like the growth got stunted because the tour that they are going to start is their third tour in their 5-year career or 4-year career. It just goes to prove that they've been out there a lot. And I thought that by this time you should be playing stadiums already. They are very, very successful. I'm not saying that they are not. I just feel like they should be more successful by now. And I think it's all because it wasn't planned out well. I think they were just like being given all the opportunities that SM can get their hands on just so they can clear the debt, earn some money. So, but I feel that that is a wrong type of planning. And the same thing is true with Ive. You know, they were so big in the beginning, and I just feel like by this time you should be selling out stadiums already. But okay, so going back to Hybe, I think that is their strategy to make sure that the idols the groups are actually ready for a North American and a European tour before they send them home. Okay, other tours would be Enhypen. They said that they just finished their tour, a stadium tour in Japan, and they are now getting ready for a world tour. And then LATAM's strengthening, which is Latin America. As you know, their new CEO, Isaac Lee, came from Latin America. And so they want a greater fusion between North America and Latin America. So one of the things that they're doing is not just limiting themselves to music, they're actually expanding to TV as well. So Pase a la Fama is one TV show that they are producing. And then the other thing that they have going is Santos Bravos, which is a boy band, the making of a boy band. So they are some sort of a I guess a reality show where they will actually be putting together the next Latin boy band. Okay. And then as I've mentioned that they emphasize that because of the successes that they are experiencing, especially with Cat's Eye, it is proof that the K-pop system will work in the West and they intend to continue that. Now, it's the this entire report is very interesting, and I'm seeing a lot of people trying to chime in on a lot of haters that are trying to like say that, oh, they actually lost money and whatever, just don't pay attention to them. The important thing is that Hybe is actually doing the right thing, investing early, because as I've said, success won't come until after 10 or 15 years. So they're front loading all the expenses, the investments in the beginning, and then hone it until they get to a time when they are already profitable. Now, are they going to fail in some? Most likely. I've mentioned before that if you look at the track record of Google, for example, one of the most successful companies out there, one of the biggest, one of the most profitable, but 99% of the ventures that they go into, it actually fails. Just that's just the nature of the business. Not every investment is going to yield income, is going to be successful. The key is in finding the investments that will make it worth it for all the other investments. So that will be, yeah, that will recover all the money that they will lose from the failed investments that they will make. But failed investments are ordinary. That's very, very common in Google. Again, every employee, because in the beginning, before the pandemic, they were actually allowed to work from home once a week. But in exchange, by the time they come to the office on a Monday or whatever that day may be, they should be armed with a business proposal. So usually they get hundreds and hundreds of proposal or suggestions, but they get to choose like one or two or maybe five in a month. They develop that, and then 99% of that will tank, they will fail, but that 1% will make everything worth it, and that's the key. Okay, I hope everything is clear. I hope that I was able to help and assist in trying to better understand what they are actually doing. And I am excited to see the financial report of the other three: JYP, SM Entertainment, and YG. And once that comes in, I'm also going to discuss that. Okay, please consider donating to the channel. As you know, we are expanding it. Right now, we're in the process of launching the online magazine. I think week after next will be when the formal launch is going to be. Any help will actually any kind of assistance, any kind of donation will actually help. That's going to go, everything is going to go to the business. And then after that, we're going to expand. We're going to do other things. We're going to interview more artists as well. So also follow me on X, also on IG, but also follow me on Patreon, because that's where the community is, that's where the conversations are happening, and it's a fun community. You will meet a lot of people we talk about everything, not just K-pop, not just BTS, movies, TV shows, culture, history, and sometimes we just joke around. Also, please consider liking the video, Oh, I did open my YouTube membership. So if you can also please be a member of that, check it out. I'm going to release a video explaining the differences, Patreon, YouTube membership, and all of those stuff. And also, please like the video, subscribe, and hit that notification button because that's really helping my channel. But the best thing would be to share it. Share it to your friends, post the link on your social media, post the link everywhere because that's what's going to help us rise above the algorithm. That's what's going to tell YouTube to recommend us to more people. All right, thank you so much, and till next time.